Greetings, everyone. Welcome to the publishers meeting. You can scan the QR code on the screen or use the link to access this presentation. So we want to begin by thanking each one of you for being here today. We really appreciate your interest in bringing the best instructional materials and textbooks to serve the students of North Carolina. The State Board of Education approved the 2024 invitation to submit instructional materials or textbooks for evaluation and adoption in North Carolina on March 7th, and a copy of this invitation was emailed to all the folks on the NC Publishers Registry. This invitation provides an overview of the textbook adoption process, the bid submission process, the evaluation process, and any relevant information pertaining to this adoption cycle for K-12 science has been included in this invitation. And if you haven't received this invitation via email, please ensure that you are registered on the NC Publishers Registry and that your information on the database is correct. We have put all information pertaining to the publishers on our website, and you can access it by clicking the Information for Publishers page. So let's quickly look at our agenda for today. We will provide an overview of the textbook adoption process, the bid submission process, the evaluation process, the NC platform for publishers that you will be using to submit your bid proposals and bid samples. We will then provide you an overview of the 2024 invitation document, which we hope you all received in an email. So before we move further, just want to remind that this is an informational type of meeting where we are really just trying to provide you with the information and go over the guidelines and parameters that are set before you in the 2024 invitation document so that you have that information as you begin to prepare your bids and then follow the steps provided to actually become involved in this process. So let's begin with the overview of the NC textbook adoption process. In the planning phase, we prepared the invitation to outline the procedures and timelines for submission, evaluation, and adoption of the instructional materials for the content being considered. In the invitation phase, the invitation document is presented to the State Board for approval, and once it is approved, the invitation is sent to the publishers on the NC Publishers Registry. In the evaluation phase, the Textbook Commission onboards the subject area experts who review the instructional materials submitted for evaluation and adoption based on the criteria that has been set forth in the invitation. In the recommendation phase, a comprehensive report along with the list of recommended instructional materials is presented to the board for approval. And in the adoption phase, once the comprehensive report is presented to the board officially approves the list of materials taking into account the Textbook Commission's recommendations, alignment with the criteria outlined in the invitation, pricing consideration, and the specific needs of the public schools. So we would like to start by talking about the definition of the textbooks, because many people, when they hear the word textbooks, they're thinking about the traditional textbooks. Now, North Carolina has a definition of the textbooks in the public school law. And you can see here that when we talk about textbooks adoption in our state, we are really talking about different formats of instructional materials that can be either print or non-print. So when we read the definition of a textbook, it's pretty open for what textbook means, and it's always up to the publishers in terms of what type of materials they want to submit or they want to present for the bid consideration. Now, this year, we have also changed the 2024 invitation heading to read as instructional materials / textbooks so that this definition of textbook is more relevant to all stakeholders. So with that being said, we will consider all types of materials, print and non-print, and it is up to the publisher in terms of what type of materials they want to submit for the bid proposals. Some of the benefits for the publishers interested in the instructional material adoption process are that they gain visibility and prestige. Your textbooks will enjoy a high profile in the state, enhancing your brand recognition among educators and decision makers. It will also help you with increased sale potentials. So having your titles placed on the adopted list that the district and schools are actively encouraged to purchase, it will provide a significant boost to your sales potential in the educational market. And in simple terms, being on the adopted list not only makes your instructional materials more visible, but also increases the likelihood of schools and districts choosing to buy them. Now, adopted materials also benefit the districts and schools because these materials are already gone through a rigorous vetting process. They align with the standard course of study. They are appropriate for the grade or the instruction level. And it also accommodates the needs of special populations and is offered at the lowest cost possible in the nation. So who is involved in this process? So to start with, it's the General Assembly. So they allocate the funding which is allotted to the districts based on their average daily membership, also called ADM. And they pass laws to govern the textbook adoption process, including giving the authority to the State Board of Education to adopt textbooks. The governor appoints the State Board of Education members and also appoints the textbook commission members upon recommendation by the state superintendent. The state superintendent assigns staff from the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction to manage the textbook adoption process under his or her directions and to also assist the textbook commission. The State Board of Education selects and adopts the textbooks as codified in the general statutes of North Carolina. They also adopt policies governing the textbook adoption process. The textbook commission that we have in North Carolina, it consists of 23 members, which includes teachers, principals, parents, and local superintendent. And their primary responsibility is to evaluate textbooks and perform other duties as contained in the general statutes and the state board policies. So it should be noted that the commission members select the advisors to assist them with the evaluation of instruction materials. The textbook evaluation advisors, when they come on board, they assist the commission in the evaluation of the textbooks. They work under the directions of the textbook commission members, and they're comprised of teachers who are certified in the area under evaluation. For example, this year we are doing K-12 science. So all the advisors will be the teachers who are certified in K-12 science. Then, of course, the publishers are also involved because these are the companies or the providers of textbooks or instructional materials. And the publishers must be registered with the NC Publishers Registry to be invited to participate in the submission, evaluation, and adoption process. And finally, the NCDPI staff, the Digital Teaching and Learning Division, the textbook adoption staff. They all assist the state superintendent in the implementation of the State Board of Education textbook policies. They also support the textbook commission members and their advisors. They also communicate with the publishers via publishers registry that every publisher is required to be a part of, to be able to be a part of this process. So those are all the stakeholders who are involved in the instructional materials and textbook adoption process in North Carolina. So here are the general statutes and State Board of Education policies. that are followed during all adoption cycles, and you can access these from the tabs at the bottom of our textbook adoption homepage. So the bid submission process is a 4-step process. Step 1 is to request the bid identification numbers. Step 2 is to access the NC platform for publishers. The third step will involve submitting the bid proposals. And finally, the fourth step, you will submit the bid samples. So let's look at each of these steps one at a time. So each bid proposal submission requires an identification number, which is issued by NCDPI. So any interested publishers must send an email request to nctextbooks@dpi.nc.gov with the subject line request for bid identification numbers. Publishers who send this email request will receive access to the bid identification number request form. The email request must be sent by an authorized representative of the publisher company who has the authority to submit the bid proposals and bid sample materials. The form will require the total number of identification numbers needed because each bid requires an identification number. So before you fill out that form, think about how many bids you're going to submit, and based off that, you can put in the numbers that you're requesting. So requests for bid identification numbers must be received between March 12th, which is today, until March 29th. And publishers who will receive the bid identification numbers will also be provided access to the NC platform for publishers, which is our online platform for submitting all the needed documents and materials. So this is how the bid identification numbers will look like. The numbers that you will receive will be alphanumeric. For example, XYZ 3000, where XYZ are the initials of the publishers or the company's name, and 3000 is the base number for the science courses. So if XYZ Publishing Company requests 6 identification numbers, then they will be in the format shown in this table. If the XYZ Publishing Company initially requested 6 identification number, and then later on they decided they need to add 4 more, they can simply add a number to the last identification number and generate the additional 4 that they need. In this example, the additional numbers generated by XYZ Publishing Company are XYZ 3006, 3007, 3008, and XYZ 3009, and they're highlighted in purple. So in total, the XYZ Publishing Company now has 10 bid numbers, 6 that were originally issued by NCDPI, and then because they needed 4 more, they self-generated 4 to have a total of 10 bid numbers. So if you requested the bid identification number, you will also receive access to the NC platform for publishers, which will provide you the cost proposal spreadsheet, bid proposal form, bid sample forms, and the shipping addresses of select sites where you will be mailing the hard copies of all the sample materials. So let's look at the cost proposal spreadsheet, which is one of the main components of your bid proposal form submission. The purpose of the cost proposal spreadsheet is to submit the bid information along with the prices for each instructional resource listed on the spreadsheet. So once you click on the forced copy link of the cost proposal spreadsheet in the publisher's platform, please rename it using the naming convention as shown in this example. You would be able to rename the document once it is, you won't be able to rename the document once it's submitted. So please make sure that you have named your spreadsheet correctly before uploading into the bid proposal form. The cost proposal spreadsheet will already have pre-populated headers for you to fill in the information. The description of each header is provided and a few entries are shown as an example. Please refer to the Instructions tab on the cost proposal spreadsheet for more detailed information that will assist you in completing the document. An example of accompanying student materials and enrichment materials has also been included in the spreadsheet. So more information about the cost proposal spreadsheet is provided on page 11 of the invitation and on the invitation tab of the cost proposal spreadsheet itself. The third step after requesting for bid identification numbers and receiving access to the NC platform for publishers is to submit the bid proposal. To submit your bid proposal, you will need a signed copy of the invitation, a transmittal letter, authority to submit bids for textbooks, which is attachment 3 in the invitation, cost proposal spreadsheet with prices, and cost proposal spreadsheet without prices. You may want to refer to page 10 and 12 and page 47 before submitting your bid proposals. We do want to mention that the bid proposal submission will be done electronically through the NC platform for publishers and by hard copy in the mail. All proposals must be submitted by April 15th. The submission parameters have been listed on page 3 and 4 of the 2024 invitation, so you may want to refer to those 2 pages for all the submission parameters. Textbook materials may be submitted for any grade level or course, and the cost proposal spreadsheet must clearly state each grade level or course that the publisher deems appropriate. The textbook materials will only be evaluated for the grade levels or courses specified by the publishers, just to ensure a targeted and efficient review process on our behalf. The last step to submitting your bids is the submission of bid samples. The bid samples must be submitted again electronically through the NC platform for publishers and by hard copy in the mail. The samples should be received no earlier than May 9th and no later than May 17th. Sample instructional materials that are print materials shall be provided in the electronic PDF format and also shipped to select sites designated by North Carolina Department of Public Instruction. Electronic version of the print materials must be complete and have the same format and content as the print version. The non-print materials will also be submitted electronically, but you will also submit it as a hard copy that includes the resources like URLs, login or access information, navigation instructions, and contact information for technical support. All links to the resource, navigation instruction, and access information must work at all times during the adoption cycle. It is the responsibility of the publishers to ensure that each submission is complete and correctly identified. All the materials must include the identification numbers that is supplied by NCDPI. Also refer to the specific instruction on the bid sample submission of the invitation before you submit or ship your bid samples. You may also want to pay close attention to the sample labels and shipping box weight requirements. So with that, we have now gone over the entire bid submission process. So let's jump into the evaluation process and walk you through what happens in the evaluation process. So after we have received all the bid proposals and samples, the textbook commission onboards the content experts to help with the instructional materials review. The publishers set up a display of the instructional or the textbook materials and hardware at the evaluation sites as per the invitation guidelines. A screening committee will examine all the displays to determine if the submissions are in compliance with the terms of the invitation. Publishers may present to the textbook commission if they choose, but there will be no question answers done during this presentation. The textbook commission members and the advisors will evaluate all submitted materials using the criteria sheets included in the invitation. The publishers will also remove the displays on a designated day between 2 and 4 p.m. as mentioned in the tentative schedule. The textbook commission will meet to formulate a list of textbooks to be recommended to the State Board of Education. A time period shall be set aside for the textbook commission to meet with or deliberate before a list of textbook recommendation is taken to the State Board of Education for adoption. So if a submission is not recommended, the publishers can ask for reconsideration and provide clarifications without changing the previously submitted information. This clarification information shall be presented verbally to the commission and may include the use of any equipment, materials, or handouts needed to demonstrate the information. Failure of a publisher to appear at the textbook commission deliberation meeting and make a verbal appeal for reconsideration shall prohibit the publishers from taking part in the reconsideration process. So this has to be done in person. So you can find more details on the evaluation process on page 15 through 17 on our 2024 invitation. So that is all the information we had to share with you today. We have made an effort to squeeze all the information in this webinar to clarify the steps and procedures, but we encourage you to read the entire invitation for a deeper dive and also share it with anyone involved in this process. The invitation includes all the information you may need to successfully complete the bidding process. If for some reason you still have questions that may have not been answered here in this webinar or we may not have thought of, please feel free to send your written questions using the form that we are sharing with you today. So all questions must be submitted in writing using this form by March 22nd, 5 p.m. Eastern Time. All the answers will be distributed to the publishers latest by March 29th, again 5 p.m. Eastern Time. So you can scan this QR code to access that form to put in your written questions, or you can use the link at the bottom of the screen. And here are some important reminders before we close the session. Please make sure you have the correct information on the NC Publishers Registry to receive all email communication in a timely manner. Publishers participating in the adoption process will be removed if undue pressure is exercised on the officials involved in the evaluation and adoption process. This includes the State Board of Education, the Textbook Commission, the Textbook Evaluation Advisors, which will be coming on board at a later time, and the NCDPI staff, specifically in the K-12 Science Department, the EC and ELL departments, and the Textbook Adoption section. Undue pressure is defined as personal contact to advocate for the selection of any instructional materials, particular book or a series of books, but it does not include social contact, presentations, or written communications to the commission for reconsideration or clarification. So there is a blackout period during the adoption cycle during which the State Board of Education, NCDPI, and the Textbook Commission may not meet privately with any publishers or their representatives. And this blackout period begins from the time State Board approves the invitation until the State Board adopts the list of instructional materials or the textbooks. The same blackout period also applies to sampling promotion of the content area being adopted, which is K-12 science for this adoption cycle. And the promotion includes display at conferences, sponsored workshops or seminars, or other similar activities in North Carolina at which the materials under consideration are being discussed. So if you have any questions about 2024 invitation, please send your questions through the form we provided to you on slide 30. And we are excited to work with you in this adoption cycle, and we want to thank you in advance for your time and efforts. Thank you, everyone.